Today, our guest host, Professor Egan, will present his second episode entitled Empty Mountains and Mirror Ponds, Pentasyllabic Quatrains in the High Tang. Let us welcome Professor Egan.
In our previous episode, we focused on the two main pre-Tang origins of pentasyllabic jueju, performed popular songs, mostly love songs from a woman's point of view, and descriptive quatrains by scholar poets. The former are highly expressive works with strong personal voice and colloquial language, while the latter are primarily elegant evocations of the natural world in formal, structured couplets, but with little personal voice. We also discussed how some pre-Tang works, like those by Yu Xin, combine the two contrasting approaches into an intermediate style that is both descriptive and personal. These are the most direct prototypes from Tang wujue. Tang wujue are fusions of feeling and scene. That said, there is stylistic range. Some hark back to the pre-Tang songs by presenting archetypal yuefu characters in dramatic situations and colloquial language. It should be noted, however, that it is unlikely that these poems were actually sung in the Tang. The musical tradition of Six Dynasties pentasyllabic quatrains and that of the old Han yuefu as well had all but died out by the early Tang Dynasty. Poets were making use of the ready-made resonance of old yuefu as source material for new kinds of poetry. Wang Wei, early 8th century, is universally recognized as a master of wujue, particularly for his limpid landscape descriptions, which often contain Buddhist allegories. Yet the few more song-like quatrains he composed are also justly famous. He writes of lovers' separation, this time from the man's point of view, in the second of 3 miscellaneous poems. You've come from our hometown and must know what's happening there. The day you left by the patterned window was the cold plum tree in bloom. 君自故乡来，应知故乡事。来日起窗前，寒梅着花味。By addressing the poem to the second-person pronoun Jun, a dramatic situation with 2 actors is created, with the poet taking the speaking role. An impression of direct and natural speech is given by the strong syntax used throughout and the use of grammatical function words, the preposition 自, from, and the negative question word 为. The repetition of 故乡, hometown, in lines 1 and 2, and 来, to come, in lines 1 and 3, imparts a sense of informality to the speaker's words and emphasizes the linguistic continuity. The words 君, 故乡, and 来日, come day, that is, the day of departure, are examples of deixis, person deixis, place deixis, and time deixis, respectively, as their exact reference require knowledge of the speech context. The inference in line 2 and the question in line 4 are modal statements that imply a speaker as a point of reference. The subtle emotion of the second couplet is what makes this poem memorable. In line 3, the word qi chuang, patterned window, that is, a window with delicately carved or latticed decoration that makes it resemble qi, patterned silk, almost certainly refers to a woman's boudoir. We assume that the occupant is the speaker's wife or lover from whom he is separated. The question in line 4 is thus projected onto the personal level. The cold plum becomes a symbol of the couple's love, which has endured separation the way plum trees endure the cold of winter. The rest of the question reveals the speaker's anxiety about the continuing strength of this love. His asking whether the flowers bloom or not is an indirect way of asking whether his wife or lover's feelings are as strong as before. The prevalent style in Tang wujue composition can be explained as a hybrid that merges the descriptive and visual power of shi with the emotional voice of the yuefu singer. One compositional method dominates. The first couplet is devoted to a description of images and often demonstrates parallelism. The second couplet is a continuous syntactic proposition and frequently exhibits deixis and modality. The first couplet is generally in the declarative mode and provides the setting or necessary background information for the second couplet. In the second couplet, the emphasis is on the subjective evaluation of all of the poem's imagery. The voice of the singer is internalized by the poet and becomes less stridently expressive and more subtly reflective. Strong emotion remains, but it is generally presented through indirection and understatement. A representative example is Wang Zhihuan, who is 688 to 742, his famous climbing crane tower, Deng Guanque Lou. White sun rests on mountains and is gone. Yellow river enters sea and flows on. If you want to see a further 1,000 miles, climb another story in the tower. Crane Tower commanded a vista from the bend in the Yellow River at a site in present-day Zong-qi, Shanxi province. On one level, this is a simple landscape poem in praise of the view. Yet when we analyze the relationships between the images in the parallel first couplet, in the light of the modal conditional proposition in the second couplet, our thoughts may shift to the metaphysical realm. The permanence of mountains is paired with the transience of water, the light of day with the dark of night, and the termination of movement, resting and disappearing, with continuing movement, entering and flowing. A cosmological cycle of yin and yang is described. Indeed, we might go further. We are exactly at the midpoint in the cycle when yang yields to yin, the point of balance. The first couplet thereby creates a seemingly complete conception of the world. But then the second couplet asserts that there is an even greater view open to those who climb higher in the tower. Implicit is that there is a truth about the cosmos that is beyond our normal understanding. There is a Tang Dynasty basis for this interpretation. Guifeng Zongmi, 780 to 841, both a patriarch of Huayan Buddhism and a major Chan or Zen master, uses the analogy of climbing a 9-story tower to describe the relationship between cultivation and enlightenment. Wang Wei was a devout Buddhist. He studied with the Chan master Dao Guang for 10 years and even converted part of his country estate into a monastery. His landscape poems are characterized by an integrated minimalism. In them, nature is distilled to a few essential images which are harmoniously arranged in a balanced and stable whole that yet pulses with the energy of their interrelationships. An overall impression of direct, unmediated reality is imparted, although in fact the landscapes are idealizations created by Wang Wei's poetic imagination. Following is one of his most famous compositions, The Deer Fence, Lu Chai. On the empty mountain, no one is seen, but the sound of voices is heard. Returning, light enters the deep forest. Again, it shines on the green moss. 空山不见人，但闻人语响。返影入深林，复照青苔上。This deceptively simple poem is in fact more difficult than it looks. One book discusses how 19 different translators have rendered it in 19 different ways, and they were all wrong. What is an empty mountain? Clearly, it is not barren, as we are informed that there is a deep forest there. Kong, or empty, is the Chinese translation of the Sanskrit Buddhist term sunyata. Primarily, the word is a negation, a denial that phenomena have self-existence. that is, permanence independent of causes and conditions. Yet emptiness does not imply nihilism, for it is also empty. Rather, it is a practical term that has meaning only in the context of salvation. In his book Mahayana Buddhism, Paul Williams has explained, to see entities as empty is to see them as mental constructs, not existing from their own side, and therefore, in that respect, like illusions and hallucinatory objects. Emptiness is the ultimate truth in this tradition, in the sense that what is ultimately true about the object being analyzed, whatever that object may be. Meditation on emptiness leads to the realization of the only permanence or self-existence, which is variously called the Dharma body or law body of the Buddha, Dharmakaya. The Buddha realm, Dharmadhatu, or enlightenment, nirvana. Thus, Wang Wei's empty mountain is the mountain as it really is from the perspective of an enlightened person. As human voices can be heard on this empty mountain, the first couplet as a whole affirms that this truth is not distant from our human world. It is indeed right here among us. The schools of Chinese Buddhism followed the traditional Indian Madhyamaka, or middle way understanding, that the true nature of phenomena is non-dual. All things lie somewhere between the extremes of being and non-being. This is as true for the unconditioned law body as it is for things in this conditioned world. Thus, there is no possible separation between nirvana, the other shore, or enlightenment, and samsara, this shore, or the world of suffering, the round of rebirth. Looked at from another perspective, both nirvana and samsara are empty, thus both are the same. The implication is that all things are related and all are interpenetrated by the law body. Enlightenment is not transcending one reality to reach another, but is the discovery of the law body within this reality. The second couplet, as always in Jueju, is dominant. Why is the light returning and shining again on the green moss? Consider that in a dense forest on a mountainside, logically the only times during the day when moss on the forest floor might be illuminated are sunrise and or sunset, when light can shine in underneath the tree canopy. The description Wang Wei presents suggests that this is part of his meaning. Fanying, returning light, recalls the phrase hui guang fan zhao, returning light shining back, which refers to the glow of colored light in the sky right at sunset. There is something suggestive about the scene. The light seems to purposefully illuminate the moss over and over again. Both the light and the moss become important symbols. But for what? An enlightenment metaphor is at work here. The interpenetration of nirvana and samsara suggests that the law body is innate within us. Indian writers termed this aspect Tathagata-garbha, the Buddha essence or the Buddha nature, and held that it is a common possession of all sentient beings. This Buddha nature is, on the one hand, what makes us yearn for nirvana in the first place, and on the other, what makes it possible for us to reach it. Enlightenment does not produce anything. Instead, it is a paring away of illusions caused by ignorance to reveal the Buddha already within us. Chinese Buddhists referred to this realization in many ways, one of which was the borrowed term, hui guang fan zhao. Here, the returning light shining back illuminates one's original nature. That explains the light, but what of the moss? One feature of early Chinese Buddhism was an expansion of the scope of Tathagata-garbha. It came to be viewed as the common endowment of not only sentient beings, but also non-sentient things, everything around us. The idea is implicit in several sutras, but it became a major focus in China, particularly through the influential teachings of the Huayan school. The scholar Edward Conze has summarized basic Huayan thought as follows. Each particle of dust contains in itself all the Buddha fields and the whole extent of the Dharma element. Every single thought refers to all that was, is, and will be, and the eternal mysterious Dharma can be beheld everywhere because it is equally reflected in all parts of this universe. Each particle of dust is also capable of generating all possible kinds of virtue, and therefore one single object may lead to the unfolding of all the secrets of the entire universe. Although moss is perhaps the most insignificant thing in the forest, Wang Wei presents it as a symbol of absolute truth. Li Bai, 701 to 762, brilliant, insouciant, frequently inebriated, and mostly unemployed, was a master of both the wujue and qijue forms. His quiet night thoughts exemplifies perfect control of structure to create a suggestive closure. Jingye Si. Before my bed, the bright moonlight, I mistake it for frost on the ground. Raising my head, I stare at the bright moon. Lowering my head, I think of home. 床前明月光，疑是地上霜。举头望明月，低头思故乡。The first couplet presents an arresting image. The poet is awakened by brightness streaming in the window, and he misinterprets its origin. The moon up above seems to him to be the reflection of frost down below. The second couplet ties the images of moon and frost to the poet's homesickness, and thereby makes them significant. Repeating 明月, bright moon, line 3 directly refers to line 1. As line 3 directly refers to line 1, we expect line 4 to refer to line 2. That is, line 4 in some manner will concern frost on the ground. Frost is not mentioned directly, but with the poet's lowering his head, it is implied. This is because the first couplet has presented a two-part visual scene in which the moon is above and the frost is below. The second couplet repeats the first half of this pattern in line 3. The poet looks up to see the moon. In line 4, the poet looks down, and so we assume the rest of the pattern. The round full moon, which in Chinese poetry often carries connotations of unity and family togetherness, has caused the traveler to lower his head and think of home. Yet his thoughts are permeated by the frost, now transformed into a symbol of homesickness and still carrying its connotations of coldness, harshness, and destructiveness. Thus, the poem has very subtly projected us into the poet's raw emotional state. The first couplet provides the images and structural pattern that are the backbone of the second couplet. However, the second couplet is dominant as it reinterprets what has happened before. Thank you for joining us, and we will be carrying on next time with the heptasyllabic quatrain. Good night.
Let us thank Professor Egan for such a stimulating talk. We look forward to presenting his third episode on Quatrain next Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed today's talk. Let us relax and listen to a reading of the poems in English by Dr. Andrew Merritt and in Mandarin by Zhao Wenxuan.
Miscellaneous poem. You've come from our hometown and must know what is happening there. The day you left, by the patterned window, was the cold plum tree in bloom? Climbing Crane Tower. White sun rests on mountains and is gone. Yellow river enters sea and flows on. If you want to see a further 1,000 miles, climb another story of the tower. The deer fence On the empty mountain, no one is seen, but the sound of voices is heard. Returning, light enters the deep forest. Again, it shines on the green moss. Quiet night thoughts. Before my bed, the bright moonlight. I mistake it for frost on the ground. Raising my head, I stare at the bright moon. Lowering my head, I think of home.
杂诗三首其二，王维。君自故乡来，应知故乡事。来日绮窗前，寒梅著花未。登鹳雀楼，王之涣。白日依山尽，黄河入海流。欲穷千里目，更上一层楼。鹿柴，王维。空山不见人，但闻人语响。返景入深林，复照青苔上。静夜思，李白。床前明月光，疑是地上霜。举头望明月，低头思故乡。